Hey everyone, I'm Guillaume here with Fun Robotics Network, here with Team 11444 Garnet Squadron, winners of the South Carolina State Championship, and they're going to just walk us through their robot and just tell us a little bit about what they're doing. So guys, up first with your intake design, why did you go with like a compliant intake and use really big gecko wheels versus just using smaller like 48 millimeter diameter wheels?
So we really like the kind of flexibility it gives us to have more compression and use that to help it get in. Another thing is, if you notice, it's sprung right here. That's because we tested multiple angles and found that instead of having a consistent angle, it's just more efficient and we can get more angles if we just have it rotate slightly.
Along with that, what kind of compression are you guys running on that intake?
On the overall intake, we're running about, I believe, 6 millimeters all around, but it kind of adjusts a little bit for the smaller wheels in the back here that are used for the transfer to make it compress just slightly less to accommodate for the smaller size.
With such like a simple intake, you guys just seem to have like funnels and like just the straight across rollers. What work have you done to like really maximize your intaking ability with like these funnels? Because like I've never really seen funnels that have these like blocks on the top and also have such a curved profile on the inside.
Yeah, so the purpose of the block on the top is to open the gate, actually. We noticed that when we just had a flat piece here and we tried to open the gate with that, it was really difficult for our driver to open the gate and then intake from the gate simultaneously. So we added these blocks to mitigate that because they're at the perfect height for him to just hit the gate and it'll open really consistently compared to with just the flat panels. And then we adjusted the curvature of these inside guides to kind of match the ball, because before they were just flat plates and that was kind of restricting our intaking space. And with already a kind of narrow intake, we want to make sure that all of it is being used. So we kind of did that to make sure that we were making the most of the space we had.
Before we get to our next segment, we'd like to thank the following. It isn't too late to order competition apparel for your team at FRC Tees. Founded by First alumni and offering a free 14-day turnaround with expedited options available, go to frctees.com to see why hundreds of teams are making FRC Tees their first choice for their apparel needs. That's frctees.com. Studica Robotics is inspiring teams to build better robots with their new array of FTC team options. Check out their updated bevel gears and Maverick hex shaft motors, Planetary gearbox options, and 6mm hex components and shafts for extreme power transmission. Go to studica.com/robots to learn more and apply for discounts.
Wow, a lot of thought definitely has gone into that intake. Moving on next to the transfer system. What kind of rollers are you guys running? What's like the speed of everything, and why did you choose to go with a 3-roller intake design and transfer?
We chose to do a 3-roller design just because it was just how we could get everything to fit nicely. And the transfer, everything runs at about 1500 RPM. One of the big things we actually had to work through was the efficiency of the intake. We originally used HTD5 belts, but we ended up switching to the smaller GT2 series belts because before the intake was drawing 3 amps at free speed, which was killing our robot power. So we ended up switching to the GT2 and it draws less than 1 amp at free speed now. Additionally, for the transfer, the first 2 balls in the system, are pushed up by the last one in the system just by the intake. And then the last one, after the first 2 are pushed through, the last one is in a bit of a dead zone. But it doesn't really matter because we have a servo kicker that is timed to always trigger and get a contact with the flywheel then.
Okay. Is like the compression for your guys' transfer the same as the intake, just 6 millimeters throughout?
Like I said, the compression on the transfer is slightly different because it's a smaller wheel, so we kind of accommodated for that.
Okay. Is it run by just like a single motor, two motor? What are you guys running it?
So right here underneath, you can see where we have a motor right there. And we've actually made sure to package the motor at the bottom of it with all the other drivetrain motors to lower our center of gravity and make us more competent against defense.
Wow, really cool stuff, you guys. I guess up next, moving on to your turret design, you guys are using a bearing stack. Why did you go with this design versus just using like an off-the-shelf turntable or an X contact bearing?
We chose to do a bearing stack because it's really simple. It's just a plate with a bunch of thrust bearings on it. And all it really came down to was we did a lot of off-season designing that actually used a bearing stack turret, so we were really familiar with it and we could design it really quickly. And that was one of the first parts we ordered this season, and we tested it and worked great. We have a custom 4mm aluminum plate here that it all runs on instead of standard imperial thickness, which was one of the biggest challenges. But with it working so well right away, we didn't feel the need to change to a X contact bearing or a Lazy Susan bearing. Another advantage is, even though it's not quite as smooth as an off-the-shelf bearing, that actually works in our favor because then the PID for the turret doesn't have to worry about overcompensation all that much.
Any advice that you would give to teams that are trying to switch from an X contact for something a little bit more, or from like a Lazy Susan or an X contact, something like a bearing stack? Any just like overall advice to them?
I would say to definitely make sure that you are ready to adjust the space between the thrust bearings. That way it's not just acting like a plate on top and bottom, but you can actually have space between there. That way it doesn't rub too much.
Have you guys run into any issues with it so far, or since you've done all the tuning in the off season, it's just been pretty smooth sailing?
It's been pretty smooth. The turret has been the easiest thing this season.
Wow, that's something I've not heard a lot of. Definitely. Why are you guys using a motor for your turret versus like 2 servos or something like that?
It was just simplicity, and we had a motor to spare. We only used 1 motor on the intake and then obviously 2 on shooter. So we had 1 to spare, and when it came down to it, it was just easy, and it's also easy to control because then you don't need an external encoder for it. And the packaging for it is super easy. You can see we've got a belt down here, and the motor just slots right in on the back plate here.
Okay. These light blocks you have at the back going on, what are they actually being used for?
One is the flywheel speed, and the other shows us the battery voltage, so we know during matches all of those small details.
Okay. With the battery voltage, like what exactly, how do your drivers understand like what the different lights mean? Like is there like different colors that go on with it, or what's that?
Yeah, so it's different color coded. It kind of goes in like a rainbow pattern. Red would be a higher voltage, so it's working great. And then anything above or below like green or blue means we need to change the battery and it can't be used in a match.
Okay. With your flywheel speed, how do you guys know how do the drivers know when exactly to shoot? Is there any sort of like indicators to tell them that, like controller rumble or something?
So our entire shooting sequence is automated, so they don't have to know when to shoot. They just get in the zone and push a button and the robot does the rest. All of our controls are bound to 4 buttons just on the triggers because we have just a single driver, so that makes it really simple to where they can both drive and do all the actions at the same time. So all that the single button does is it spins up the flywheel to the correct speed, which it runs the entire match, so it's usually really fast at getting to the correct speed. Then it opens the gates and it spins the intake and then finally moves the kicker to launch them, and then it just carries on.
So all of that is just happened with 1 click of a button, like everything from the intake to the kicker to the shooter, all of that unloads in like at the exact same time?
Correct. So for example here, you can see it spins up, but then at the push of a button, that was the shooting sequence there.
Wow. So what kind of speeds are you guys getting when you, with that whole mechanism? Just you have three artifacts in your system and you unload them. How fast is that whole sequence?
The whole sequence in our testing, we can do it about rapid fire from close zone in about a quarter of a second.
Wow, that's really quick, guys. Moving on to your shooter, how do you guys consistently like look at the goal? Like what kind of like optimizations you have there? Like you guys use a camera, you guys use just a pinpoint. What's going on with that?
So we use a PID system to know where our bot is on the field so that it can adjust the hood and the angle, whether it's in the close zone or the far zone, and make sure it has the right angle to get in the goal. We also have a camera on the front here to help the PID recenter if it gets knocked off course. It looks at the April tag on the goal and then it recenters everything on the control hub.
Okay. For the actual shooter itself, why did you guys decide to go with the 2-motor design, and how fast is that intake spinning? What's the weight you guys have on the flywheel? Could just run me through that, like everything, all the specs of this outtake you guys have.
So I don't remember the weight on the flywheel off the top of my head, but we went with 2 motors because we figured a little more power on the shooter can't hurt, and we weren't going to use it anywhere else. So one of the big things with our shooter is our hood, which moves along this track here. We decided to go with a track shooter because we originally tried one that pivoted on the same shaft as the that pivoted coaxially to the flywheel, and it was just so bulky we didn't like it. We wanted something simpler, so it kind of has a track here almost on the hood here that the ball will follow, and it's constant compression between this stationary part of the hood right here and the moving part of the hood.
What exactly is the compression on that outtake system?
It's 10 millimeters from a 5-inch ball, but obviously the balls are slightly smaller than 5 inches, so it kind of accommodates for that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What is the speed on the flywheel? Does it change throughout depending on where you are, or what is like a constant running speed for it?
Yeah, 4,000 RPM. I believe it does change a little bit based off of close or far zone. We also used, as you mentioned earlier, this to kind of get a better arch and angle on it, and then we have this to rotate, and that can help us kind of aim it. Well, this works more on the actual distance.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. With the gate system, why did you guys use like a kind of like horizontally facing one versus just like a lot of teams have their servos mounted like almost like vertically, and they have like their gate go like horizontally versus you guys have it go vertically?
So one of the big things with that is when I was designing the gate system, I didn't want the load of the artifact pushing up against the gate to go into the servo in a way that the servo isn't designed to take. So while it's in a servo block and has bearing support, it's better if it goes into the servo this way, where it's trying to just turn the servo, which the servo is meant to be able to fight, versus pushing up and down on the servo, which will just hurt the servo spline and break the gears.
Yep. So clearly a lot of thought has gone into that gate design. For Endgame, you guys, what are you doing for that? You guys have a lift, a kickstand. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so for Endgame, we've got this kickstand parking mechanism that triggers when we want to go park. You can see it's got the ratchet on it that I'm trying to disengage right now. So the ratchet really helps because then we just engage it and we park, and we don't have to think about it. We don't have to worry about powering the robot off. It's going to stay there for the referees to look at and make sure that it's in the zone. And one of my favorite parts about this is how it's really compact. We didn't design to have this originally, but we just mounted these square beams down here instead of some standoffs that were there originally. And then we just made a custom bent aluminum mount for a really compact form factor for this to just mount in and be nice and modular and be great if it worked, and if it didn't, no worries, because this was designed in January, right before our first competition.
Okay. For that ratchet design, how does it ratchet? Like what do you use in order to do that?
I'm so glad you asked. We use a ratcheting wrench. We just bought that off Amazon and checked the torque specs for it. There's no need to reinvent the wheel and make a custom ratchet when you can buy a ratchet wrench that fits the size of shaft. So we just kind of went with that and haven't had any issues with it.
Of course, yeah, simplicity is always the best idea. How exactly did you come up with like the gear ratio for this design and the placement of it? What kind of math went into that?
So we did a statics problem to find the amount of torque that was necessary to lift the robot, and ultimately we wanted to make sure we had a big safety factor. So when I was just designing this to see if it was even possible to see if it was even possible to fit a kickstand mechanism, I just threw a pretty big gear ratio at it. You can see it's a 1:5 gear ratio, a 12-tooth to 60-tooth gear here. But when I did the statics problem, I essentially set it up as an inequality to see if the torque that was exhibited on the bot was going to be greater than the torque that the servos could output, essentially. And we found that we had about 5 times the torque we needed. So it provides a pretty good safety factor because the servos weren't going to be running at 6 volts as well. So we just wanted to make sure we had more than power than we needed.
Yeah. Is it very consistent throughout the match? You guys use it a lot often? Like how is it like work all the time, or any optimizations that you would make to it?
We have one big change that we have to make to it now, and that's to add a small counterweight back here, because once we added this shield for our wiring here, it started tipping forward, but that's the only issue we've had with it, and we haven't had any big issues with it. It works mechanically how it should.
Any future plans you guys have with the rest of the robot going into the World Championship?
So the biggest change we're going to make to the robot is switching up the intake. Right now you can see it's pretty narrow in the front, so we're actually going to widen that as much as we can, and also add an intake guard in the front here to prevent it from getting hit and the shaft bending. We're also going to switch the intake rollers to custom compliant wheels, custom silicone molded. We've experimented a lot with that throughout the season, but we finally have perfected a design so that it will work. And what's great about the custom wheels is they compress a lot more, so you could even run them stationary and make them even faster, and just have them compress the ball even more, which gives them much more grip on them.
Nice.
Additionally, we're going to plan to add a brake pad.
Yes, so the brake pad design is going to be mounting on towards the bottom of the bot around here, and it'll be using a over-centering linkage to prevent the brake pad from actually rising back up. It's just powered via using a servo, and yeah, that's all it should need. It should make it so that we can stay still and not be pushed while shooting from the far zone.
Wow, such a thoughtful design, you guys. Everything's been completely thought out. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. Once again, I'm Biom here with Fun Robotics Network and Team 11444. Thank you guys so much for watching, and best of luck to you guys.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. Studica Robotics is inspiring teams to build better robots with their new array of FTC team options. Check out their updated bevel gears and Maverick hex shaft motors, Planetary gearbox options, and 6mm hex components and shafts for extreme power transmission. Go to studica.com/robots to learn more and apply for discounts. It isn't too late to order competition apparel for your team at FRC Tees. Founded by First alumni and offering a free 14-day turnaround with expedited options available, go to frctees.com to see why hundreds of teams are making FRC Tees their first choice for their apparel needs. That's frctees.com.